On the night of June 17, 2019, Mackenzie Lewick had just returned to Salt Lake City after attending her grandmother's funeral in California. At 2:40 in the morning, she boarded a Lyft, a ride-sharing service similar to Uber, with her destination being Salt Lake City International Airport. What seemed to be just another ride-share trip would become the first act of a tragedy. During the journey, Mackenzie was exchanging messages on her phone. The Lyft driver noticed that she seemed calm, typing on her phone like any young person would. Her chosen destination was noteworthy: Hatch Park, a remote location in North Salt Lake, about 20 minutes from the airport. At 2:59 in the morning, the Lyft driver dropped her off at the park. He witnessed something that would later be crucial to the investigation. Mackenzie was met by a dark vehicle, apparently a Subaru. She seemed to know the person, as she entered the car without hesitation. The Lyft driver observed a brief greeting between them, nothing that seemed suspicious at the time. This would be the last time Mackenzie would be seen alive. Her last text messages, her final Lyft ride, and her final meeting in that dark park would become key pieces of a macabre puzzle that the police would take days to unravel. What no one knew at that moment was that this seemingly casual meeting had been meticulously planned through a dating site, where Mackenzie had met a man who presented himself as a prosperous IT professional. The reality behind that facade would prove much darker than anyone could imagine. The airport security cameras captured her last moments of normalcy. A 23-year-old young woman, casually dressed, carrying her luggage after a night flight, with no indication of the tragic fate that awaited her. Her last message to her mother, "I love you, Mom," sent upon landing, would become a painful farewell. If you're not yet subscribed, don't forget to subscribe to our channel to not miss videos of real cases. That last text message, "I love you, Mom," carried even more weight because it came from someone who always put family and compassion first. Mackenzie Lewick wasn't just another college student. She represented the type of person who made a difference wherever she went. Born in El Segundo, a quiet suburb of Los Angeles, Mackenzie chose the University of Utah to pursue her academic dreams. As a kinesiology and pre-nursing student, she demonstrated exceptional dedication to her studies, maintaining exemplary grades while balancing an active college life. Her career choice wasn't by chance. It reflected her deep desire to help others. This altruistic spirit was already evident since high school, where she left an important legacy. Mackenzie didn't just participate in extracurricular activities, she created them. Her most notable initiative was founding a club dedicated to breast cancer awareness, demonstrating maturity and social consciousness beyond her years. At the University of Utah, she found her place in the Alpha Chi Omega sorority, where she quickly became a maternal figure for other members. Her sorority sisters described her as a natural mentor, always available to offer advice, support, or simply a friendly shoulder. Her presence in the sorority was so significant that she was often called Mom by freshmen. With graduation planned for 2020, Mackenzie was just a few steps away from realizing her dream of pursuing a medical career. Her professors saw her as a promising professional, someone who combined technical competence with genuine concern for others' well-being. But her dreams and all her potential were brutally interrupted that June night when she disappeared at Hatch Park. The contrast between Mackenzie's vibrant life and her sudden silence couldn't be more alarming. The student who was always present, always connected, always making a difference in others' lives, simply vanished after that night at Hatch Park. The first red flag arose when her mother, Diana, tried to respond to that last message, "I love you, Mom." The text, instead of appearing in the familiar blue of iMessage, changed to the green of a regular SMS, a sign that Mackenzie's iPhone was turned off or out of range. For a young woman who was constantly online, this seemingly small detail was disturbing. The signs that something was wrong only multiplied. Her car, a vehicle she used daily to go to university and work, remained untouched in her house's garage. The keys, the suitcase she had taken to California, everything was mysteriously absent, except for the vehicle. At the university, her absence was immediately noticed. Mackenzie, the dedicated student who never missed classes, didn't show up for an important midterm exam. Her professors, accustomed to her active participation, reported her absence. At work, at the biological testing company where she was an intern, the same pattern. No news, No notices, no McKinsey. Perhaps the most concerning sign came from her banking records. The student who regularly made small transactions, coffee before class, lunch with colleagues, study materials, hadn't made any movements after paying for her last Lyft ride. It was as if McKinsey had simply disappeared from the digital map, leaving only silence where there was once so much life. McKinsey's digital silence, instead of covering up her disappearance, ended up leaving a trail of evidence that investigators would meticulously follow. Each absent transaction, each unanswered message, became a piece of the puzzle that the police needed to put together with growing urgency. The first concrete clue came from the security cameras at Salt Lake City International Airport. The footage showed McKinsey, casually dressed and carrying her suitcase, getting into a Lyft at 2:40 in the morning. She appeared calm, checking her phone while walking, an everyday gesture that now carried a sinister weight. The Lyft driver was quickly located, and his testimony brought crucial details that would begin to unravel the mystery. She seemed calm, the driver reported to the police. She was sending messages throughout the trip. When we arrived at the park, she made a comment about how strange it was to be dropped off at such a remote place late at night, but she didn't seem worried. He dropped her off at Hatch Park at 2:59, where she met someone in another vehicle, a detail that would become vital to the investigation. Investigators dove into McKinsey's phone records, and that's where they found the most significant clue. In the hours preceding her disappearance, she had exchanged 8 messages with an unknown number. The content of these messages wasn't available, but the timing was revealing. The last communication happened at 2:58 in the morning, precisely when she arrived at the park. Even more intriguing, between 2:58 and 2:59 in the morning, McKinsey's phone stopped transmitting data completely. It was as if the device had been turned off or destroyed at the exact moment she met the mysterious person in the park. The police then made a disturbing discovery through geolocation analysis. Another cell phone was present at Hatch Park at exactly the same time. The device belonged to someone who, until then, wasn't on the investigation's radar, a man named Ayoola Ajayi. Data cross-referencing showed that Ajayi's phone left the park minutes after McKinsey's phone's last signal. When investigators began tracing Ajayi's movements that night, a sinister pattern began to emerge. His phone followed a path from Hatch Park to his residence on Fair Park Avenue, a journey of just a few minutes. Security cameras in the area captured his vehicle, a dark Kia, making exactly this route. The car was seen arriving at the park at 2:48 in the morning and leaving around 3 o'clock, shortly after the Lyft's departure. Investigators also discovered something peculiar. Ajayi's own security cameras, which normally recorded 24 hours a day, were mysteriously turned off during that specific period. It was a detail that couldn't be ignored. It suggested premeditation, a conscious effort to conceal evidence of what was about to happen. The investigation team began to build a precise timeline. McKinsey's flight landing at 1:35 in the morning, her boarding the Lyft at 2:40, arriving at the park at 2:59, and her phone stopping data transmission a minute later. Each element seemed to fit into a macabre puzzle, pointing to a meeting that had been carefully planned. Ajayi's presence in the park that night couldn't be mere coincidence. Investigators now had a prime suspect, but what they would find in following this lead would shock them even by experienced homicide investigator standards. As the investigation delved into Ayoola Ajayi's past, a disturbing portrait began to emerge. Behind the facade of a successful technology professional, there was a person with an obscure history and increasingly disturbing behaviors. Born in Nigeria in 1988, Ajayi arrived in the United States in 2009 with a student visa to attend Utah State University. His academic trajectory, however, was erratic. He tried 3 times to complete different courses but never graduated. In 2014, he attempted to join the Utah National Guard but was discharged after a few months for not completing basic training. Despite these initial failures, Ajayi managed to build an apparently respectable career in the technology sector. His LinkedIn profile, later removed, boasted experiences at prestigious companies such as Dell, Goldman Sachs, and Microsoft. He presented himself as an IT specialist, although subsequent investigations would raise doubts about the veracity of some of these credentials. One of the most disturbing aspects about Ajayi was his work as an author. In 2018, he published a book on Amazon titled Forge Identity, a fictional story about a teenager who witnesses friends being burned alive by a violent mob. The book, which Ajayi claimed was based on real events from his past in Nigeria, revealed a morbid fixation with death by fire that would later gain sinister significance. Ajayi's house on Fair Park Avenue was a digital fortress. Security cameras covered every angle of the property, a system he obsessively controlled. Later, investigators would discover that he frequently recorded intimate encounters without consent, but curiously, all cameras were turned off on the night of Mackenzie's disappearance. Perhaps the most disturbing element came to light when Brian Wolf, a local contractor, approached the police with a chilling story. Just months before Mackenzie's disappearance, Ajayi had requested the construction of a secret room in his basement. The specifications were precise and sinister. Soundproof walls, a hidden door with biometric lock, and, most disturbing, metal hooks fixed in the concrete walls. When questioned about the room's purpose, Ajayi offered a peculiar explanation. He said he needed a place to hide alcoholic beverages from his Mormon girlfriend. The urgency with which he wanted the project completed and his insistence that money wasn't a problem left Wolf so uncomfortable that he refused the work. Something was wrong there, Wolf would later testify. Nobody would build a room like that just to store drinks. Ajayi's controlling behavior wasn't limited to his house. His ex-wife, Tanisha Ajayi, would later reveal a pattern of abusive and controlling behavior. She described incidents of physical violence and death threats, including an attempt to tie her up with a phone cord. Although she had managed to escape the marriage, she never managed to get him to sign the divorce papers. As investigators dug deeper, they discovered that Ajayi had been investigated for sex crimes in 2014 and again in 2018. None of these investigations resulted in charges at the time, a detail that would later haunt investigators in the Mackenzie Lewick case. Ajayi's obsession with fire, evidenced in his disturbing novel Forge Identity, wasn't just a literary fixation. On June 17th, just hours after Mackenzie's disappearance, neighbors witnessed something that initially seemed just strange, but would soon prove horrifying. The smell was something I had never experienced before, a neighbor reported to the police. It was such an intense, disturbing odor that it reached my window. I initially thought it was my trailer, but when I went out to check, I realized it was coming from his backyard. Smoke was rising from Ajayi's yard, where he had improvised a bonfire using a red gasoline can, the same one security cameras had caught him buying at a gas station at 9 o'clock that morning. When questioned by neighbors about the illegal bonfire, there were pollution restrictions in the area. Ajayi demonstrated a disturbing calmness. He claimed to be just burning some old clothes and some yard waste. A neighbor, bothered by the unusual smell, threatened to call the fire department. The bonfire was extinguished, but the damage was already done. The execution of the search warrant at Ajayi's residence revealed a scene that shocked even experienced investigators. In the backyard, near the bonfire site, they discovered an area of recently disturbed earth. The excavations revealed disturbing evidence: a human bone, charred muscle tissue, and, most horrifying of all, a piece of scalp with hair still attached. The forensic laboratory worked urgently on the analyses. The DNA extracted from the remains confirmed investigators' worst fear. They were Mackenzie Lewick's. But this was only part of the macabre story. Investigators discovered that Ajayi had tried to destroy evidence in multiple locations. In the Jordan River, near his house, Mackenzie's belongings were found, including her University of Utah student ID and clothing items with burn marks. However, the most significant discovery was yet to come. Analysis of Ajayi's phone records revealed that he had made a suspicious trip to Logan Canyon on June 25th, turning off all his security cameras again during this period. Logan Canyon, a remote area 85 miles from Salt Lake City, was popular among hikers and skiers, but that day it served a more sinister purpose. On July 3rd, after a meticulous search of the area, investigators located a shallow grave covered by bushes. There was Mackenzie's body, partially burned, with her hands tied behind her back with plastic zip ties. The autopsy would reveal the brutality of her final moments. Blunt force trauma to the head had been the cause of death. The location chosen by Ajayi to hide his victim wasn't random. Situated in a remote area of the canyon, away from popular trails, it demonstrated premeditation and calculated knowledge of the region. The attempt to conceal the body there was only discovered thanks to the digital trail left by his cell phone. An irony for someone who worked with technology. With Mackenzie's body found and Ajayi in custody, the investigation entered its most revealing phase. The macabre puzzle began to take shape, exposing a truth even more disturbing than initially imagined. Through attorney Neil Hamilton came the first confirmation. Mackenzie and Ajayi had met through a site called Seeking Arrangement, a platform that connected sugar daddies to sugar babies. The site, which presented itself as a place for mutually beneficial relationships, had become the perfect hunting ground for Ajayi. Although he initially denied knowing Mackenzie, investigators found on his phone not only photos of her, but an extensive history of conversations between them since 2018. The premeditation of the crime became evident in the meticulous details. Ajayi had strategically turned off all cameras in his house before leaving to meet Mackenzie, a significant detail for someone who used to obsessively record everything on his property. He had bought gasoline beforehand and chosen a remote location for the meeting. More disturbing still, he had prepared tools for the crime, including the plastic zip ties found on Mackenzie's wrists. As news of Ajayi's arrest spread, other victims began to emerge with frighteningly similar stories. A woman reported a disturbing encounter in March 2018, when Ajayi invited her to his house under the pretext of a romantic dinner. What started as a casual date quickly turned into a nightmare when he violently attacked her, leaving bite marks and other injuries. At the time, she hadn't filed a complaint out of fear, but Mackenzie's case gave her the courage to speak up. E.V. Keener, owner of a modeling agency in Salt Lake City, also came forward. She reported having met Ajayi at a networking event the previous summer, where he tried to register at her agency as a model. "There was something about him that scared me," revealed Keener. "He seemed perfect on the surface, intelligent, well-presented. But my instinct told me to keep him away from me and my young models." Perhaps the most impactful testimony came from Tanisha Ajayi, his ex-wife. She revealed a pattern of controlling and violent behavior that had begun shortly after their marriage. "He threatened to kill me if I didn't move to Utah," she reported. "Once, he tried to tie me up with a phone cord. I had to jump out the window to escape when he tried to stab me." The revelations didn't stop there. A contractor named Brian Wolf brought to light that Ajayi had tried to hire his services to build a secret room in his basement months before Mackenzie's murder. The specifications were disturbing: soundproof walls, a hidden door with biometric lock, and metal hooks in the walls. When Wolf questioned the purpose of the room, Ajayi offered an unconvincing explanation about wanting to hide alcoholic beverages from a Mormon girlfriend. The forensic analysis of Ajayi's electronic devices revealed an even darker side. Beyond a history of online stalking, investigators discovered evidence of other possible crimes that were still being investigated. The man who presented himself as a successful technology professional was, in fact, a meticulous predator who had spent years perfecting his ability to attract and attack vulnerable women. The case prosecutor would later summarize, "This wasn't a crime of passion or a date gone wrong. It was a premeditated act by someone who had developed a pattern of predatory behavior over years, waiting for the right moment to escalate his violence to the most extreme level." In October 2020, the Salt Lake City courtroom was silent when Ayoola Ajayi entered, wearing dark glasses and a blue mask due to the pandemic. The man who had meticulously planned Mackenzie Lueck's murder now appeared diminished, responding in a low voice to the judge's questions, requiring an interpreter to translate from English to Yoruba, his native language. During the trial, prosecutor Sim Gill presented a disturbing reflection on the case. Most homicides have clear motives: money, revenge, passion. But this case was different. Ajayi killed Mackenzie simply because he wanted to experience what it was like to take a life. This chilling conclusion was corroborated by the evidence of premeditation discovered during the investigation. Facing the possibility of the death penalty, Ajayi accepted a deal with the prosecution. He pleaded guilty to first-degree aggravated murder and desecration of a corpse. In exchange, prosecutors withdrew charges of aggravated kidnapping and obstruction of justice, removing capital punishment from the table. The sentence was clear: life in prison without the possibility of parole. When given the opportunity to speak, Ajayi offered a quiet apology, saying he knew his words wouldn't bring Mackenzie back. The Lewick family, present in the room, remained in dignified silence before his empty words. Greg Lewick, Mackenzie's father, addressed the court with an emotional statement. "My life changed forever due to the selfish and premeditated decision you made on June 17, 2019. Instead of planning my daughter's graduation party, I planned her memorial. It breaks my heart to know she died alone in such a frightening place." The Mackenzie Lewick case sparked a national discussion about safety in dating apps and websites. Digital security experts began warning about the specific dangers of platforms that promote financially based relationships, where predators can take advantage of young people seeking financial support. The University of Utah, where Mackenzie was just months away from graduating, established a scholarship in her memory. The specific program focused on supporting students interested in working with domestic violence awareness and personal safety, causes that Mackenzie had defended in life. Ajayi's house on Fair Park Avenue, where the crimes were committed, became a dark symbol for the community. When it was put up for sale for $349,000, neighbors expressed hope that new owners could bring positive energy to the location. "There's a black mark in your mind when you look at the house," said a neighbor. "Something horrible happened here." Mackenzie's friends from the Alpha Chi Omega sorority created a foundation in her honor, focusing on educating young women about online dating safety. "We couldn't say goodbye to our friend," said one of the sorority sisters, "but we can ensure her legacy helps protect other people." Diana Lewick, Mackenzie's mother, has worked tirelessly to keep her daughter's memory alive. In partnership with online safety organizations, she participates in lectures at universities, sharing Mackenzie's story as a warning about the dangers that can hide behind seemingly respectable profiles on the internet. If this story impacted you, leave your comment below and subscribe for more content that can help save lives. Share with those you care about. We never know who needs to hear this warning. Until the next video,